Hello and welcome. From protests against autocrats holding on to power to the rare disposition of defeated candidates congratulating victorious opponents, 2016 turned out to be the year of both a paradigm shift and a resistance to ballot-driven change in Africa. This year, the democratic process looks even more crucial, especially in East Africa, where you have the politics of tongue-lashing, the rhetorics of character bashing, and the certainty that only one candidate will win any election. This is Africa This Week, and I'm your guide, Fadeshola Shotingwa. We start off the day with earlier in the week. Welcome on board. Anger and disbelief was high in Kenya after the missing Deputy Director of Information Technology for the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the IEBC, was found dead on Monday. The remains of Chris Musando showed signs of torture with an arm chopped off. His death stoked renewed fears of turmoil before polls, which is in 8 days. The late Musando is believed to be one of the workers at the IEBC with knowledge of the whereabouts of servers at the facility. Before he went missing, he had complained of death threats and was last seen driving in his official Land Rover.
He had already been killed on a Friday. The body was brought here on Saturday at about 11 something in the morning. And therefore, what the police were saying that they are doing further investigation and going to create a special squad to deal with the issue, I think was neither here nor there.
Killing and murder of our employee, Chris Musando. There's no doubt that he was tortured and murdered. I know post-mortem will be done. In our mind as a commission, the only issue is who killed him and why. And that's a question that must be answered. We are a few days from elections, and we all know it's the duty of the government to provide security for all Kenyans. And at this point in time, I demand from the government that they provide security for all employees of IBC for us to give Kenyans a free and fair election.
Two white South African men accused of assaulting a black man pleaded not guilty on Monday on the first day of their trial at the Delmas High Court. Theo Martins Jackson and William Ostowizen allegedly forced Victor Umlotshwa into a coffin and threatened to pour petrol over him. The men told the court they only wanted to teach him a lesson and did not intend to cause harm. They face charges of kidnapping, assault, attempted murder, and possession of an illegal firearm. They were granted bail last month.
We reject discrimination. So we also trust in the justice of our law, and also we trust in our judges, obviously. That's why we have the courts and the judges. So whichever outcome we will take it as it is.
On Tuesday, Malawi's former President Joyce Banda was issued an arrest warrant for her connection in the country's Cashgate corruption scandal. The case, which involved large-scale looting of government coffers, is the biggest financial scandal in Malawi's history and helped push Banda out of power in 2014. Malawi's National Police spokesperson James Kadazera said the country's fiscal and fraud police have credible evidence which raises reasonable suspicion that the former president committed offenses relating to abuse of office and money laundering. He said the warrant of arrest came into force from Monday. Banda has been living in self-imposed exile since she lost to President Peter Mutharika in the 2014 election. Niger Republic was in the news on Wednesday, where thousands live off the business of human smuggling. According to reports, people smugglers are making a living out of the misery of these people, allowing an economy of suffering to thrive. But for how long will this go on?
Some 330,000 people traveled through Niger last year, most heading to Libya and to Europe and beyond, paying up to several $1,000s to smugglers to get them there. In a country where 46% of people survive on less than $2 a day, a trafficker can make $4,000, even $5,000 per trip, with up to 30 people packed in his truck. But now, to stay on the right side of the law, smugglers are smuggling to find a new way to survive. A former smuggler, Bashir, says all he can do best is smuggling.
We don't know how to do anything else except for this work. Can't you see? We've lost our work. We've lost our lives because this was our life. This is what put bread on the table.
The untold scores of refugees and migrants died on their journey. Many lost, abandoned in the Niger desert. Since the crackdown, the route has only become more dangerous as smugglers seek different routes.
This law puts people in a situation where they are going to become poor. They will feel denied, and after a certain time, they will become difficult to control. And that, in fact, is what concerns us.
The trafficking business has allowed an economic of suffering to strive. Daniel, a Cameroon migrant, says smugglers demand more money. When they could not pay, they were tortured. His brother and his uncle were kept hostage, and Daniel was brought back to Agadez as a home slave.
In Libya, we were tortured. We were kept in a compound where other passengers were allowed to go out, but not us, since they thought we might escape.
Now those holding his brother want 550,000 sefer, roughly $1,000, for ransom, money Daniel and his relatives simply do not have. The Niger is now a major hotspot for people who flee persecution, danger and poverty in their home countries. Most are considered economic migrants by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. But the UN agency shows that around 30% qualify for international protection status once they reach Europe.
Thursday had the spotlight turned on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a new UN report shows that a militia group blamed for atrocities in the country is largely made up of children. The report also reveals that a militia formed to defeat it is suspected of a campaign of ethnically based massacres and rapes.
The UN says the new report is based on testimonies from people who had fled from the violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo to Angola. It said one militia group, the Kamwina Nsapu, consisting majorly of children, male and female, with some as young as 7 years old, has been fighting Congo's government for over a year and has summarily executed at least 79 people.
Between March and June of this year, our team documented a large number of killings, 251 killings of individuals, a large number of them children. 62 of the cases were of children that were killed. In the context of a crisis and attacks going out on an ethnic basis, but with government complicity, so with state forces involved in organizing, backing one of the ethnic-based militias that have been carrying out attacks.
The report said there were no corroborated cases of Kamwina Nsapu committing large-scale killings based on ethnic identity. Typically, its members would execute a government official and decapitate them. Now, following this, a second militia group, the Banamura, was formed in March or April, allegedly armed and supported by local leaders and officials from the army and the police, to attack the Luba and Lulua ethnic groups to which Kamwina Nsapu fighters belong. Citing separate witnesses, the report said the Banamura shot, chopped up and beheaded many people.
The primary source of information was from direct victims and witnesses of what took place. One very disturbing finding that our team noted on the ground was victims and witnesses again and again mentioned that when their village was attacked, the attackers coming from one ethnic group were often accompanied by either police or local officials or officials from the army, and that they claimed that local officials, government agents had been involved in the planning and sometimes the actual carrying out of the attacks or in providing arms to one of the ethnic groups. What's concerning,
there is great concern that the government may use situations in the Kasai to further delay elections. There have been calls for a state of emergency in the region or that the elections simply cannot take place in the Kasai.
There is a real concern that the government may use the situation in the Kasais to further delay elections. There have been some calls that a state of emergency should be declared from supporters of the president, or that elections simply can't take place in the Kasais.
The United Nations has identified 80 mass graves in the Kasai region.
Rwandan voters queued in long lines to cast their ballots in the presidential election on Friday. Incumbent President Paul Kagame has won accolades for presiding over a peaceful and rapid national economic recovery since the 1994 genocide. But he has also faced mounting censure for what critics and rights groups say are widespread human rights abuses, a muzzling of independent media and the suppression of political opposition.
Cannot say who is going to win, but I think everybody will be, it depends how people they are comfortable by the campaigns, what each candidate said, and it's the job of the Electoral Commission to publish who will win the election.
And with that, we have come to the end of Earlier in the Week. Up next is Digging Deep, and that will be after this break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Africa This Week. In a continent where elections are expected to hold in more than 17 countries in the course of 2017, this year alone, democratic process is presently an august visitor in the land of 1,000 rolling hills that chose to rise from the depths of conflict to the heights of development in less than 2 decades. August the 4th will go down in history as the day Rwanda stood still to elect a president in what is deemed as a one-horse race between an incumbent leader virtually up against himself with 2 other contenders making up the numbers. Joining me via phone to dig deep on Africa This Week is Shegun Jegede, a lawyer and former Rwandan genocide prosecutor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, very quickly, what is your reaction to this landslide victory of President Paul Kagame?
We saw this coming. It is not a surprise at all because we all knew that we all know the antecedents of this man and that he has done a lot for his country to bring stability.
How do you assess the Rwandan electoral process as opposition laments the lack of a level playing field?
Well, you know, in Africa, there's always 1 or 2 complaints after an election. The opposition would always complain that the winner has cheated, and so I'm not surprised that this is coming today. And he's loved by a majority of Rwandans, so it's no surprise at all that he won the election in such a landslide fashion.
Well, the 2015 referendum also gave Kagame the opportunity to contest for another 2 terms. Now, how much of a concern is this, even as it is perceived that Kagame faces no stiff opposition?
The case of Kagame and Rwanda is a special one. The fact that Rwanda and Kagame has been able to bring his country to this level reinforces the argument that good leaders should be allowed a lot more time to develop their country and community. So Kagame has, in a one-handed fashion, has been able to eradicate corruption in his country. I see him more as a benevolent dictator. There are others like him in the past. But the benevolent dictator exercises power on behalf of his people for their benefit. And this is what is happening here. I prefer that to a failed democracy that we have in this country or in other parts of Africa. I prefer what Rwanda is, what Kagame is doing in Rwanda to what we are having in some African countries. Here is a man who has brought a country that rose from the ashes of genocide in 1994. This country had nothing in 1994. It was a very backward country. Today, it counts amongst the most developed of the small countries in Africa, and it's still growing. The GDP grows at an average rate of 7% per annum, that is very high. That is quite high for an African country. And he's been able to bring corruption to reduce it to the barest minimum. There's almost no corruption in that country. There's almost no crime in that country. Everybody is hardworking, unlike in some African countries where people go to work and don't do anything there. So he's been able to bring his country among the community of nations that can really be called nations, developing nations, not retrogressive ones such as we have in most parts of Africa. So I think it's a special case. The case of Kagame is a special one. He should be allowed to go on developing his people and bringing prosperity and development to the people.
All right. How would you describe Kagame's leadership style, even as his critics say his style is undemocratic?
Well, democracy has to be seen. What I believe in personally is a homegrown democracy. Democracy has to be developed in line with the culture and the development of the people. You know, if you don't democracy used as the way implemented the way it's implemented in Europe cannot work in Africa wholly. So it's a big problem. You see, maybe thinkers have to get together to see how democracy can be implemented and adapted to local situations. And this is what Kagame is doing in the case of Rwanda. Kagame understands his people understand him. But when foreigners use their own standards to judge Rwanda, they might come up with the judgments such as that the democratic tenets are not being implemented in Rwanda. I don't subscribe to this idea at all. I think democracy has to be adapted to local situations. And until we begin to do that in Africa, we won't get it wrong. We won't get it right. So I think he is doing it very well, and his people understand where he's going with them. And everyone can see, everyone who has been to Rwanda can see what he has done with his power. He exercises his power not for himself, for his own benefit, but for the benefit of the people.
Mr. Jagede, what do you foresee as the likely dangers of Kagame's leadership till 2034, although he does say he will not contest after this term?
Well, if he has said that it's not, I believe that no matter how powerful a despot is, he still has to seek the approval of his people at every point in time, and which he has always done. The people, great majority of the people love him. And the day they begin to see him in another light, then of course I'm sure that people will rise up, even if he doesn't want to leave power. But for as long as his people love him and they've seen the dividends of of the way he's exercising his power, then I believe the people will support him, will continue to support him. But the day they begin to see him in another light as a retrogressive and not working in their interest, then I believe the Rwandans will rise up against him, and there are dictators like that. We have Ceausescu in Romania, and lots of them that have been displaced by their own people.
Well, would you say that Paul Kagame is still enjoying the political benefits of being the one who liberated Rwanda from the 1994 genocide?
Absolutely. I agree with you. And he has only not enjoyed that the political capital, but he has also been able to develop his people. And these people, Rwandans are proud all over the world now of what he has done for them. And he's continuing, he's not stopping. He has a plan which he is following. And that is why he told these people, look, well, we have this plan and we have to follow it through. So that is people understand him and ensure that they're not thinking the way other people are thinking.
All right, what are your speculations for the country's future in terms of deliverables of democracy and good governance?
Well, he has, as I said, Kagame has a blueprint that he is following, and he has not wavered from this blueprint. He has a 10-year plan, 20-year plan, and they follow through on this plan. Anyone who had been to Rwanda before, or, let me say, in the who was there after immediately after the genocide, and who have come back today would hardly recognize the country. There has been a lot of development, and this can only be the development. This can only be something that can come from somebody, a leader who has a vision for the people and who also loves his people.
All right, Mr. Jegede, what now happens to leaving the scene when the ovation is loudest, especially in Kagame's case, where he can still be in power until 2034?
I believe Kagame is not an irrational man. He knows when to leave the stage. He knows, he understands the dynamics of power, and he knows that the people, ultimately the people who dictate when a leader should stay or when a leader should leave the scene. And that's the way I see it. I think he's going to be able to read the signs when to leave the scene. It's not for us outsiders, foreigners who don't even know what's happening in Rwanda, to tell him when the ovation is loudest. I believe this is a very subjective thing, and that should be left to Kagame to decide.
Subjective indeed. Segun Jegede, lawyer and former Rwandan genocide prosecutor, thank you for joining me on Africa This Week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, elections come and go, and in most parts of Africa it is back to status quo for citizens, with leaders who seem to have an expertise in failing on promises and falling short on expectations. Rwanda seems to have built a reputation for itself as an exception to such expectations, but also points to the need for a brand of politics in Africa that is fully democratic, truly competitive, and fairly inclusive. I have been your guide, Fadishola Shatingwa. Many thanks for watching, and bye for now.